Welcome back to the Always Thinking Mindset channel, where we give you positive vibes and simple rules to achieve your goals. Now, in today's video, we are going to speak on the 3 ways to invest in real estate, no money needed. Now, before we begin today's video, a simple request is to like the video so it can help the algorithm. You don't have to be subscribed, that's okay. But if you love the channel, you already know what to do. All right, let's go ahead and start today's video. Now, you say I can get into real estate with no money needed. How is that? You always need money to make money, right? Wrong. Okay, and the first rule that I want to get into is pretty much get your experience. You have to get experience, right? That's the only way someone's going to lend you money, whether it's a bank, a private investor, but don't worry about the money right now. What your focus should be, especially if you're early in your 20s, is to get all the experience you can, right? The way to do that is to actually go into an environment or a job that does that. Which better way of getting into real estate is managing properties? That'll be a great opportunity to see how networking works, how all the problems, issues tenants have. Just get your feet wet in order to, get into the real estate game because it's a long process. But on top of that, it requires a lot of experience. And with real estate, I would say that I meet tons of people that say they're just starting. Some are in the middle, and some are at the very end where all they're doing is just wanting to finance deals and letting everybody else work. But at the same time, it requires experience. So, get experience. At the same time, if you do end up getting a loan or something like that, don't buy a house automatic, right? Look into what you can do is called house hacking, right? Where you actually live in one unit and you rent out the other three units. So let's say you have a duplex, a quadplex. You can stay in one for free, rent out the others. You're basically living in that house for free. But you got to learn how to take advantage, right? You got to learn how to get those rents out. You got to learn how to squeeze the lemon. But that takes time and experience. And the way to do that is to actually do it, take action. And this is why I say get the experience first, right? Also, there's plenty of programs out there that you can qualify with little to no money down. The biggest one is the FHA loan. FHA is usually 3.5 of the purchase price or the listing price. But learn how to take advantage of deals, learn how to research, learn how to get money out of it, right? Because at the end of the day, what you're wanting to do is, be financially set. But it all requires, having experience and putting in the work. Now, to put in the work leads me to my next topic here, which is there's a thing called uh, liability partnership and general partnership. What does this mean? Liability partners, what they do, they're mostly passive, so they fund the deal. They got money, they're looking to fund the deal, but they want somebody to work to the day-to-day operations. This is where you come in with no money. You're usually called what's called a general partner. Now, with that being said, you are going to be busy. You are going to run the day-to-day operations. And sometimes they even give you a slice of the pie, right? Because you got to understand real estate. Sometimes you just hit a wall that capital is not, accessible, and you have to go out to private money lenders. You have to learn how to communicate. You have to learn how to ask for money when needed. But at the same time, they're going to see your resume, right? They're going to see how much experience you have because it's their money. They're at risk. They don't want to just hand it off to somebody with no experience and just give me money. They want to see a track record. With this LP and GP model, it basically, it's one of those things that you don't need money. It's just you doing the legwork. And when you're early in your 20s, that's all you have is time, right? So why not get a slice of the pie? And I always say, listen, if someone's willing to fund the deal, and let's say they split it to where, the LP keeps 80% and gives you 20%. Listen, that's 20% of equity within the deal. That's better than zero, I always say. And like I said, majority of the money doesn't come from banks. It doesn't even come from you. It comes from someone else. But you got to learn how to gain experience in order to impress the investor, and they're going to want to see a track record. which leads me to my next rule, which is networking, right? Networking. What is it? How to use it? We all know it. It's the same thing as fitting in or just starting a simple conversation. You got to surround yourself with the people you want to be with, right? So let's say, you got to around winners, and the saying is, if you're hanging out with nine losers, guess what? You're going to be the 10th loser, right? So the same thing applies. If you hang around with nine millionaires, guess who's going to be a millionaire? You. But you got to surround yourself with the people you want to be. And not to say that, in a conceited way or I'm better than you way, but you got to, as you level up in life and you actually start to balance sheets and start getting more financially savvy, you end up meeting a lot of investors and everybody's at different levels. That's what you got to understand. But they all have experience, right? A lot of them get tied up and they just got businesses to run, or it's just too much to where they're willing to finance the deal. This is what I was telling you, that there's literally no money needed, but there is a lot of legwork needed. And this is where you come in. And you have to learn how to network. You have to learn how to talk to people, communicate, show them your experience, show them you're worthy, and in the end, you'll end up getting more of a return. Now, with that being said, it's good to have a mentor, especially a mentor that has patience. And a lot of businesses, right? You don't want to speak with nobody that doesn't own real estate properties or doesn't know how to manage stuff. Get with the people that do, right? Learn off of them, learn the ropes. They will teach you stuff you will never see in any kind of education, whether it's high school or college. And it's just a fast track, right? Because even when I met certain investors, they were willing to put me under their wing. And at the same time, I was excited to learn. And this is without me, you know, getting paid. But at the same time, it's so much knowledge that I was willing to pay him, right? Because I can see the day to day operations, I can see how he handles clients, and it was so fun. It was so interesting to see how that works. So if you can get a mentor and actually learn how to network with people, that'll be your greatest asset, right? Don't worry about the money right now. It's all about networking and actually getting with people and surrounding yourself with people that want you to succeed. And they're never going to judge you, right? Anybody that's a millionaire and you tell them you want to be, a thousandaire or a millionaire, they'll tell you, okay, well, how you're going to do it, and they're going to try to help you. People that are not millionaires, they're quick to judge. They don't know anything, and at the same time, why would you take advice somebody that doesn't even, try to be on your level? But at the same time, you got to learn how to seek to serve. At this time, you got no money, so you got nothing. Your ultimate option is to work for somebody. When you put in the work, people will see not only your work ethic, they'll see you're trustworthy, right? At the same time, they might be testing you because in the end, they're looking for somebody. They are looking for somebody because they're taking on so much that they're willing to delegate duties, and they'll finance everything. Money is not the issue. That's what I want you to get, right? Because you can join a chat, a academy, any kind of member. There's plenty of investors in there with top-notch dollars. They're willing to give it away, but you gotta gain their trust. You gotta show them that you're worthy and you have and bring experience, because at the end of the day, they're taking the risk. So learn to network. That's number one. Well, number two, actually, but leads me through to my last rule, which is don't worry about money right now. Okay. A lot of young guys end up worrying about, I can't get the money, I can't get the capital. Go find the deal, play with numbers, right? Talk with people, surround yourself with those people. The money will somehow show up. Trust me, it's more of a game to where if the deal makes sense, the funding is not going to be the issue. It's mostly getting the deal, right? Because anybody that finds a great deal is willing to fund. They're not going to pass up a good opportunity. And that's where you come in, right? Because you will be a general partner, or if you actually just selling to investors that, hey, listen, I'm worthy, I got a track history, I know what I'm doing, I need X amount of dollars, they'll stroke you, they'll give you a check right there and then. But you have to put in the work. And with that being said, don't worry about money right now. So you got to learn how to build your brand, right? Because you as a person, you're learning the ropes, And all that takes time, and there's no money needed, but time is sort of a currency, right? You're willing to put in the work and learn for free. Sometimes they'll even pay you. They're not going to pay you as grand as you want them to, but they're willing to compensate for, basic needs. You never know what you'll get into until you start networking and socialize. But you got to build trust with them. You got to understand that that it's a dog eat dog world in real estate. And at the same time, it's hard to trust people, especially in business. Business is hard, and nobody likes to lose and make not make profit. So, you know, the thing is, when you get into real estate, you have to learn to go through the hoop, make mistakes, and learn from them. What good is making a mistake if you don't learn from it, right? Because even investors that just started off, they don't know what they're doing, but they know it's a good deal. They know they're going to get their money back, and they're willing to take the risk. Sometimes you learn as you go. When I first bought my property, I knew what I was getting into, right? It was a 3 bed, 1 bath, and it had a lot of termites. I knew there was issues with the house, but it's okay because I had time. I was single. I was willing to put in the work. And on top of that, I did what's called sweat equity. That means I worked on the house myself. I learned so much between plumbing, electricity, floors, contractors. You see, all that takes experience. Excuse me. All that takes experience, but you have to do it because that's the only way you see it. And once you gain that confidence, you're building your own track record to go to the next investor and say, "Listen, this is what I've done. This is the money I've made." They're willing to cut you a check because now you have something, right? You have something for them. So, like I said, the money is not the issue. It's more of the experience and putting in the work. Now, sometimes you just have to get in where you can fit in. And at the same time, whether it's being an assistant, property management company, something simple, but surround yourself in real estate to where, you're able to network, help others, solve problems, right? Because you're going to see the behind the scenes of the nasty stuff of real estate. Everybody on YouTube or social media just shows you the lavish cars and the lifestyles, but nobody shows you the problems. No one shows you the issues, right? And there is problems. Trust me, I've encountered them. I can vouch for that. But you got to understand that it takes experience, and that's the only way you gain confidence is when you take action and you actually go through the tunnel. Now, experience matters. They're actually going to see how you're good at balancing books, whether you're able to get ROI, return on investment. They're studying you as much as you're studying them. And when I say they, it's private money lenders, right? It can also be banks. Don't get me wrong. You can go through the traditional route of getting a loan. But at the same time, sometimes it's too much red tape to where the deal's there, you have to act fast and you need to raise capital. And when you raise the capital, you plug it in, you get a certain amount of equity, everybody lives happily ever after. And at the same time, it wasn't even your money, right? You're using somebody else's money to get a benefit. So the money's going to add up. You're able, as long as you're able to work and are coachable, people are willing to work with you. That's what they want to see. So my advice to you, especially being young, you got no money. You're barely making ends meet. I think there was an interview with Grant Cardone where a young guy went up to him and said, "Hey, I have $4,000. What can I do with it?" And I think Grant said, "Spend it. You're young. Go have experience of you being young. That's not enough money. It's not enough money to make money." And he was right because he's at a different level. And this is where I tell everybody, when you start in real estate, everybody's at different levels. So you got to kind of help everybody attain a different level. And sometimes people are willing to pull you to the next level. And at the same time, you got to learn how to seek to serve, right? That's the benefit. The benefit is you putting in the work because later on, once you go through all the mistakes, once you go through all the failures, once you get high experience, you're gonna have money. You'll be able to know how to navigate yourself wisely through real estate and end up making millions of dollars, probably billions of dollars, because you put in the work. Now you become the passive investor. Now you become the limited partner and start funding deals and saying, hey, young guy, I'm here to help and I want you to manage the property. But It all takes experience. And this is a way that I always try to tell everybody that you don't need, technically, you don't need money. What you need is experience, you need trust, you need networking. And just to sum up everything, you know, don't worry about the money right now. Build your brand, build your confidence, get into real estate, work with others, learn how they, navigate the seas, and you're going to be in the best shape of your life, especially when you're young, ahead of the curve, and everything will fall into place. Now, that ends today's video. And at the same time, it gets me excited talking about real estate. But if you like today's video, give it a thumbs up. It does help the algorithm. And if you'd like the channel, please subscribe. Please check out the channel as well. I do have a podcast. I do have future interviews coming up, so that'll be interesting. But at the same time, I'm here to serve. I hope I provide value, and we'll talk soon.